is Fred Brooks. I'm co-chair for the religious communities of the Greater Binghamton Labor Religion Coalition. We're here today as part of the Moral Monday program. The Moral Monday started back in 2013 in North Carolina. It spread across the country, and we've had 3 Moral Monday events last year. This year we're having 3 again, although 2 of them will be on. This is the second Moral Monday event. The third one will be on a Wednesday, as a matter of fact. Today we are talking about the federal budget and calling people's attention to the way the federal budget is being developed. We really believe that the federal budget should be developed on moral principles, using the high priorities of meeting the needs of the people. We soundly believe that the morality of developing a budget is important in terms of our democracy. We think there are certain guidelines that should be being used. One is the preferential treatment of the poor. Secondly, we believe in terms of the religious principles that there should be a willingness on the part of the people to sacrifice for the vulnerable people in our society. And third, we believe that people should offer, those of us who are religious should offer our allegiance to God. And if we are giving our allegiance to God and we interpret God as love, then we talk about caring for one another. Not only do we care for God and ourselves, but we care for the vulnerable people, the poor, and all those in our society who needs. And we also, at the same time, question the whole issue of using extraordinary amounts of taxpayer dollars to fund a bloated military industrial complex. We are here today to make a statement that people should be outraged, and we know they're angry, but they should be outraged about what's happening in the federal government, both at the President's office and in the U.S. House of Representatives and the U.S. United States Senate. And we hope to be part of the educational process for the people in our nation, and certainly here in the area, city of Binghamton and the surrounding area, educate them to what needs to be done, and then encourage them to make contact with the elected representatives to let them know what's important for the people. We thank you very much for coming on this beautiful sunny day turning rain, but these are all gifts of our God, and we thank this special day. Amy Fleming is going to offer the prayer to begin our time together, and I'm very pleased to introduce you, Amy Fleming from the Peace with Justice program.
Thank you, Fred. Take a moment to quiet our minds and whisper our prayer. We breathe the common wind of the earth, no matter where we speak, who we love, what language we speak. We drink the common water of the earth, no matter our skin color, how long we live, the coverings we drape on our forms. We follow the common paths of the earth, no matter our beliefs, how far we move from home, the goal that we carry, or its lack. May we live from these truths, our hearts open to the holiness all around us, and our hands turned always toward the common good. We ask that for all. Amen.
My name is Fred Brooks, and Ben Frisbee and I co-chair the Greater Binghamton Labor Religion Coalition. And I want to thank each of you for participating in this Moral Monday event. As I mentioned earlier, the second in 2015. Building upon the moral movement started in 2013 in North Carolina. We are to affirm the importance of using religious principles and values of the great religions to use the people's money to serve the people. My role today is to remind others of the work of the faith leaders in the relation to developing a responsible national budget based upon basic religious values and principles. The best thinking of the Christian, Jewish, Muslim, and other religious communities highlight the fact that people of faith across the nation are concerned about the quality of our national life and our nation's direction. Many of us in the religious communities are concerned about what appears to be the divisive actions of our political leaders and the deep neglect of the needs of many in our society. As we in the faith communities view the proposals of the members of the U.S. House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate, we are deeply concerned. We are reminded that all of our faith traditions place people who are impoverished and marginalized at the forefront of concern. The current fiscal debates at their heart are a struggle for the soul of our nation and the conscience of its people. We grieve at the soaring gap between the rich and the poor. Faith and fairness require that we preserve and strengthen vital lifelines for people who are struggling to overcome hardship and poverty. The faithful way forward to fiscal health calls for a focus on job creation, revenue increases, a shared commitment to the common good, and certainly cuts in the unnecessary military spending, which are indeed ruining our nation. We who are here today, participants in the religious, labor, and other community groups, wish to indicate that we are fighting for the soul of our nation. We believe that unless our national budget is developed using the insights of the great religions of the world and acknowledging the highest religious principles, our nation will not be served well. We are here today to remind our nation's elected leaders that there are essential priorities upon which a national budget should be constructed. These priorities outline a concern for all Americans, not just for the national corporations and multinational corporations and the wealthy elite. Priorities which express concern for food security, well-paid jobs, education, housing, the needs of children, the elderly, the homeless, the unemployed. Priorities which express concern for affordable health care, honoring commitments to the elderly and the children, women, the disabled, the underserved populations. Priorities which highlight the need to address environmental issues, the need to protect clean water and clean air, the need to shift our energy development efforts away from fossil fuels to sustainable energy. Our presence calls upon our elected officials and our nation's citizens to address these issues of human rights and human security, to address the real cost of war and the cost of neglecting God's creation. It calls for a fair and just system of taxation so that the nation can also balance its budget and reduce national debt. We are indeed in a struggle for the soul of our nation and its moral conscience. We grieve at the soaring gap of between the rich and the poor. And we are here today to hear voices raise concerns about others. I'm reminded always of this great quote from Justice Louis Brandeis of the Supreme Court. We can either have wealth in the hands of a few, or we can have a democracy, but we cannot have both. I'm very pleased at this point to introduce to you Judy Arnold, a member of many groups, including the Greater Binghamton Labor Religion Coalition.
We are here to ask people to take the blinders off. Working families and the middle class are getting crushed. We got into this mess because we forgot that it is working families and the middle class who are the engines of our economy. Instead, the rich got a lot richer at our expense, while most people, no matter how hard they worked, fell backwards or just managed to keep up and lost benefits. What did many of the biggest corporations do? They pushed up profits by pushing down wages and benefits and shipping our jobs overseas. Corporations are sitting on $2 trillion in cash. Instead of creating jobs in America, they are making CEOs and shareholders richer. So now it's harder than ever to meet the basics to care for and support our families. 20 million people need jobs. While billionaires buy their own islands even, at 15 million a clip to park their yachts, the top 10 hedge fund managers only pay a 15% tax on their $12 billion, compared to 70% in the past. While you pay 20% if you're lucky to make $40,000, or if you've lost your home in the mortgage debacle, or lost from your health care bankruptcy. Citigroup with $6.4 billion and JP Morgan with $17 billion in 2013 paid no taxes. Companies like GE, Verizon, and Wells Fargo Bank pay not 1 cent in federal income taxes on their billions in profits. The reality is they're shirking their responsibility to contribute fairly to our country, to the communities in which they live, and to the Americans who do work hard every day. Elizabeth Warren said straight out that she thought JP Morgan and other banks were breaking the law. Here's how she describes Jamie Dimon's reaction. Suddenly, Dimon got quiet. He leaned back and slowly smiled. So hit me with a fine. We can afford it. The money is frozen at the top by greedy, out-of-touch executives who arrogantly say such things to us. We've lost sight of a basic truth. We all do better when we all do better. But New York gives the rich a free pass, while the average Joe pays more and more in fees. Common sense would figure out how to make categories for small businesses and farms. Common sense would know that increasing wages increases demand for goods and services, helping everyone. Common sense knows we need to fix our bridges and sewer lines. The gall of dumping people onto charity and then blaming them. The playing field is not fair nor level. Here's a quote from Deshawnay Stokes. Privilege is not knowing that you're hurting others and not listening when they tell you. Debt and deficit is a man-made crisis. Politically rigged rules of the game are against the middle class and the poor to benefit the corporations and billionaires. We need to make decisions for a tax system so that the wealthy and big corporations pay their fair share. Private equity firms need to be taxed at a higher rate. Increase the cap on Social Security. We need to be progressive, not these regressive fees. America works best when we all do our part and work together as one nation, indivisible and strong. When each of us does our part in exchange for the blessings of liberty, committed to the country we love. But today, working families and the middle class are getting crushed, while the super rich and huge corporations game the system at our expense. This has to stop.
Thank you very much, Judy. I'm pleased to introduce to you John Englert, the CSEA member, Vice President for the Broome Tioga Federation of Labor, AFL-CIO.
Thank you. I'm here on behalf of the Federation because our President, Kate Murray, is ill today, and I said I would say a few words, which I will. I'll say a few words. The GOP and House Senate budgets include drastic cuts, and I think it's important to know what kind of con game is being pulled on the American people. They would, what they want to do is they want to bleed down programs in education, energy, environment, housing, job training. But if you ask the American people will say they want investment in infrastructure, climate, economy, immigration. And they would do that, and they would support higher tax revenues just to achieve that end. Let's talk about some of those things. Better jobs. Two-thirds of Americans say that they want to improve job prospects. In education, two-thirds say we should improve education, free community college, and the Senate and the House are doing nothing. Healthcare, 56% of Americans want an expansion. Social Security, 66% wants to strengthen it. Not an entitlement, as has been told to us by the GOP. Get as many people off as possible is their plan. Privatize Medicare, health care. 61% of American people want it improved and fortified. Kick people off of Medicaid. 62% said Medicaid should continue. In regards to food stamp cuts, supported by 70% of Americans. Okay, what happens? Pentagon gets a blank check. White House wants $500 billion. GOP says more. Corporate taxes, too high. 66% of a Gallup poll says Americans believe they are not. Rich can't afford to pay. 68% of Americans say they're not paying enough. Working class pay more. 91% of Americans say we pay too much now. And what this ends up is a con game. And the con game is this. We're being told one thing, and Americans are saying another. The majority of Americans don't want to see these cuts, and that's what's being played on us. So I think it was Paul Krugman who said that this is what's happening to us. So he's an economist. I don't know if you know his name, but yeah, he claims this. Okay, and thank you very much.
I want to thank everybody for coming here today. I just want to lift up a couple of things for you as we close. A budget is a moral document. It reveals what the nation's fundamental priorities are, what is important and who is not, what is important and what is not, who is important and who is not. I'm wondering what it takes to awaken the American people. Paul Krugman's editorial recently indicated that people should become angry. I keep watching and waiting for people to show their outrage about what is happening. I'm known for recommending books for people to read, and I want you to, and I want everybody in the Binghamton area to read this great book, The Betrayal of the American Dream, by Don Bartlett and James Steele. They wrote a book back in the 1990s, America, Who Really Pays the Taxes? And they did a thorough study of the tax reform deals through the years. And they found that every time there's a major tax reform, it's the wealthy who benefit and the poor who pay. Where is the outrage? I think our job, those of us who are here, those of us who are in the labor communities, those of us who are in the religious communities, and those who are in the community groups have a responsibility to continue to educate ourselves and our friends and even our enemies. I've come to believe that our elected officials are often available to the highest bidder, and they will do the will. I've come to believe that we are in a situation today where many of these elected officials have betrayed not only the American dream, they are betraying the American people. I want to thank you very much for your willingness to stand, to be here, and to go forward to make changes for this democracy which we are in danger of losing in light of Citizen United and the McCutcheon decisions. We are in danger, but we are going forward with the hope that we can change and educate and bring people to bear on the political scene so that we will have budgets that are based on concern for the vulnerable, concern for all the people and not just the select few. Thank you very much. Tim?
My name is Timothy Walcott. I'm a retired educator and at this stage, almost a full-time activist for various issues, particularly peace and education. Fred mentioned, where is the outrage? I'm seeing it finally in classrooms, in districts, not only in New York State, but across this nation. 60,000 students in New York State have opted out of the standardized tests. Their parents had to sign a form to do that. That is extraordinary. Nationwide, there are groups like those parents in New York State that are saying, well, if the education departments don't listen to us at forums and the governors don't care about us because we're not hedge fund managers, we are ultimately the controller of our children's lives. They made that stand, and they are being echoed across the nation. Lastly, I'd like to make the point that there is an alternative to the twiddle-dee, twiddle-dum system of political election in our nation. The Democrats have for too long taken the labor and the progressive vote for granted. They have assumed we were there, and we were, because we didn't have an alternative. We have alternatives. We have a third party, similar to what is in Europe for many years, called the Green Party. We have candidates that can run for single-payer health care, renewable energy now, no standardized testing beyond what it was in 1975, and many other planks that are pro-labor, pro-progressive, and really a vital way of getting to a political system that responds to our popular calls rather than ignores them and pockets the money. Please consider being involved in whatever function and organization that you have. We need all the people we can in the streets, on TV, and in their committees working for these progressive actions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Okay, Jack Gilroy.
I wonder how many people here are aware of the fact that we have almost 70 progressives in the House of Representatives. This is fewer than we had a few years ago because we lost people like Dennis Kucinich and our own Maurice Henchy, whose office at one time was just a few steps away from here. But nevertheless, if you're going to work with anyone, I believe what Tim was just saying about progressives, you've got to concentrate on getting the conversation going by working with progressives in the United States House of Representatives. There are only a small number, but these are people who could turn the conversation. They're individuals who can finally stand up to the right wing that is ripping off the American people, cooperating with corporations, not just like General Electric, but many other corporations paying no taxes, and yet at the same time profiting from the American worker. And the American worker stuck making weapons, the #1 export in the United States, sad as it may seem, is weaponry. This is the great country of the United States, made in America. One time this was the stamp of something that we were really proud of. And now we are the leader in producing weapons of death and destruction. Homeland Security is located in here. The real security is not domination, such as we are doing. The real security is generosity. And yet we're losing our generosity. We pretend that we are generous people, but we rank number 20 in gross national product to all the poor nations of the world. So let's not just think of Americans. Let's not just talk about what we have to do for Americans. Let's talk about the poor of the world. These are our brothers and sisters, not just the poor of New York City or Chicago or Los Angeles, not just the American rural poor, but the poor of Latin America and Africa. And we are wealthy enough, we can do that. We can start a global Marshall Plan and get rich doing it, because America got rich by being generous at the end of World War II. We were the ones who produced the steel, building materials, the automobiles, etc., that were eventually used around the world. Germany and Austria today are two prime, rich, generous, powerful nations. They didn't pass away their money on militarism, and we have. And it's about time that we get the progressives in Congress to begin to speak for us even more than they have been in the past. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I want to conclude with a quote from one of my favorite authors, Parker Palmer. When we forget that politics is about weaving a fabric of compassion and justice on which everyone can depend, the first to suffer are the most vulnerable among us. As they suffer, so does the integrity of our democracy. Thank you very, very much.